Hey guys, I hope everyone is doing well. So, I think today's video is primarily going to focus on what do product managers do. Typically, I think organizations define product management in different ways. In fact, even within one organization, you could have multiple, sets of roles and responsibility for what a product manager does, right? Uh, but if you look at it from a let's say 3,000 feet perspective, or if you look at it from skills perspective, you'll come across, I think, uh, probably I would say 7 to 8 skills, or I would say probably 7 to 8 areas that the product managers, definitely have to focus on. Uh, and I think over a period of time, there's a lot of refinement, obviously, that happens. For you as a product manager, and then I think just like every other role, uh, there are, I think, set of responsibilities that will get redundant over a period of time. New set of responsibilities will be added. So I think the delta over a period of time is going to be there, but the overall, I would say, parts which are constituting the current set of, let's say, responsibilities, that itself is a very, very, I would say, Herculean task to master, right? So uh, without making it sound too difficult for you, what I'm going to do is I am going to look at, I think, some of the probably, like, I think, areas, right, that the product managers actually uh, focus on. And those areas will cover, I think, the different kind of skill sets also, for example, that are needed. Right. So let's just jump into it. Right. So I would say the number one, area that the product managers definitely have to uh, understand and work as part of their responsibilities is that they have to understand what a complete and a finished product is going to look like, right? So this is more like looking backwards and thinking about how the user will be benefiting by using your product or your product features, right? uh, in typical, I think some companies like Amazon also highlight that what would be the news release, going to look like for your feature. So you are basically imagining that the product is already launched, right? And you're doing a press release of that. So what would be present in that press release is something that can help you think through the capabilities of the product or the product features, right? Number two, I think, as part of what product managers do, is that they are the voice of all the cross-functional teams. I think if you look at the number of different teams that the product managers work with, it's probably by far the most across any industry type, across any function. So they do interact with engineering, which in a very large organization could be split into back end, front end infrastructure teams. You have your UI and UX designers team. You have your customers, and you could also have customer facing teams, right? Then you have the product marketing teams. Then you have your after service and support teams, right? So, and but I mean, this is not, let's say, uh, let's say, a comprehensive list, but over a period of time, these are going to be the inflection points, in the organization, or like I would probably call the gravity, points, or the gravity teams that you have to interact without fail over a period of time. So that's the important part for a product manager, that uh, the voice, the singular voice, is being heard across all the cross-functional teams, right? So that's pretty important, I would say, area. I think the third area that I would probably highlight would be focusing on your product generally speaking, and not what, let's say, your uh, 10 other let's say parallel product lines that your company is building out. So you could be, let's say, working with PayPal, you could be with Amazon, you could be with Google, right? So Google will have, let's say, a bunch of teams, product teams. uh, One could be within search, one could be within YouTube, one could be in photos, one could be in calendar, one could be in Google Cloud, like processing, GCP. Each of these teams is going to completely focus on different organizational outcomes. You are obviously going to be part of just, let's say, one team, which means that you are not focusing on the entirety of what Google does, but you are going to focus on, let's say, what Google Photos is focused on, right? So there would be obviously different PMs, but I'm probably, let's say, talking about a web app, let's say like a GCP, or an AWS, or maybe even like a Photos, which is a web app as well, right? So then in that, like, there could be different product areas that you could focus on, right? So let's say user onboarding experience, right? How do the page layouts look like, right? How does the setting page look like, for example? How does the page where you're adding users going to look like, right? There could also be teams that are doing, let's say, integrations. So for example, if tomorrow I want to allow photos to directly sync, whatever I'm clicking onto the cloud, which is the GCP, right? Or if I'm allowing WhatsApp integrations of photos, what are the consequences, right? And how is the experience going to look, right? So that is the important part, that you are going to focus on your product and not, let's say, what the overall company is trying to maybe do, right? So overall, maybe let's say Google is trying to reach as many users as possible, which is also one of your, maybe, like, let's say, goal. But you as a product manager for Google Photos is purely focused on Google Photos and not on any other product area, right? So I hope that clarifies, right? Now coming to the fourth important part, which is you know you are liable to show impact. It goes without saying that product managers cannot survive without showing the impact. It could be dollar, monetize or monetization impact. It could be user retention, user activation, user growth, kind of impact. Whatever it is, there have to be metrics aligned to your organization goals. Your leaders will help set up those matrices, and then you drill down and attach to your product features those matrices, right? There is another part to it, that yes, I have done the metrics alignment, I am aligned to my organizational goals, so what, right? So then basically you are waiting for the aha moment of your product, which is to say that uh, companies like maybe Facebook, or let's say Zynga, or looking at, let's say, Slack, all of these are like B2C companies, right? So they would have, let's say, user growth, user retention kind of, like, targets. So for example, Slack could say that if X number of messages were sent within a team, right, that is the metrics that they want to, like, look at. And once that is reached, then they call it their aha moment, right? For a Dropbox kind of a service, right? If users are saving files in folders using, let's say, three or four different device kind, then that is basically an aha moment for them, right? So this is B2C, right? I mean, for B2B, for example, right, onboarding could be an aha moment, that as soon as I am able to sign in, uh, I do a trial, and then after that I start using the product. So within the first 30 days, if I am able to onboard X number of users, that's my aha moment, right? What is the growth of number of users looking like from trial to paid customers, right? So for B2C and B2B companies, obviously the impact varies, but nonetheless, there is an impact, and there is that aha moment that, what every product manager's dreams to see one day, right? I think then, looking at and reaching so far, I think in the journey, you would have realized that uh, there's a lot of, I think, structure, but at the same time there's a lot of chaos, right? Which means that you now need to probably come to the point where you're defining the problem statement and doing a lot of brainstorming, right? So for example, you could be defining the personas for your feature or your product, or the product areas that are impacted, right? Or the discussion on the UI and UX flows, right? And then looking at how do you solution it, right? So for product managers, I think this is probably a very underrated part where they are spending a lot of time in brainstorming the challenges, right? And I think needless to say that when you are actually looking at these areas individually, right? So let's say, for example, you are trying to identify uh, the UI UX flows, right, within the problem scope. Then there's going to be a lot of discussion with the designers, wherein you might come up with, let's say, high fidelity, low fidelity mocks. You might also do, let's say, mock up reviews to get from your customers to do get a feedback. Now, when it is coming to scale, for example, in B2C, you might do a lot of A/B tests, right? Which is to say that you might identify certain flow for users on, let's say, how do they click on a button, right? Whereas if you're looking at a B2B product, and it was going to be completely different, right? You might also take those mocks directly to the customers instead of doing an A/B test as you did in B2C. In B2B, you can just directly take the mocks, show it to your customers, get the feedback, and then only get into the discussions of developing any solution, right? So I think that, is crucial, the customer feedback. Um, so that's how you conclude your problem definitions and brainstorming. uh, I think coming to the sixth part or the area, which is prioritization and creation of a roadmap. So if you clearly look into the roadmap, right, there are items that you have to uh, define within the scope. So there is this concept of user stories, for example, which means that when you are creating your roadmap items, each of the items will have a set of user stories. It'll obviously have a set of, let's say, uh, sign-offs and acceptance criteria. It will also define the scope, like what is it that you are going to solve for, right? uh, Next comes the most crucial part, which is preparing your product requirement document, or in many companies you could call it ideation to release document, right? Whatever you call it, it is the single most important step in the life of a product manager. The product manager live and die by the PRD. It has details on, let's say, your competitors. It has a detail on your market sizing. It has the details on what are the personas, right? What are the user types that are going to be impacted by the development of this product? What are the growth metrics, or like the metrics in general, going to look like, right? And eventually, what are the, let's say, success criteria is going to be, right? Uh, so that, I think, is the importance of PRD. And have a look at this PRD template here. You can see, I think, the amount of detail that is present in this PRD document, right? uh, I would recommend that, I think, try to maybe read about, I think, different kind of product requirement documents. See, I think, what you can pick up as part of commonalities. I think the parts that I described are without fail going to be present across multiple, like, PRD templates. If you're looking for standard PRD templates, do leave a comment. I'll I'll share, I think, the ones that I've used for most part. And then finally, I think coming to your eighth area, right, which is let's start building and let's plan for a release, right? So remember, I think the first part where I had talked about what is the release going to look like, what is the news article going to look like. You are now coming to that part where you are actually planning on the release of your user stories that you defined in your PRD. Uh, you are going to define user acceptance testing use cases. You are going to cover edge cases. You are going to cover regression testing scenarios, right? And then you're basically maybe going to do a private beta launch, right? And then take it to limited availability and then general availability, right? So release plans do comprise of pretty much all of these. And once, let's say, the features are developed, there's a lot of handshaking that will happen across multiple teams that I described, right? So your job as a product manager is to ensure that if a feature is about to be released, right, what are the what are the comms going to look like, right? What do you mean by comms is like what are the release communication going to look like? Who are the teams that you're going to reach out to for the comms? What is the communication going to constitute of, right? uh, I think you'll realize that product managers do work under a lot of stress, a lot of, I think, critical time management is needed from time to time. But there are also phases where they are doing a lot of research and discovery, right, to prepare for the next blockbuster, let's say, feature or a product, release. So a product manager, as I say, never sleeps, never keeps his eyes closed, and is never shy of listening to conversations. Right. So a product manager always is in the mix of things, and is always amongst like the teams that are working in different directions, and a product manager is trying to pull all of them together to work towards a singular organizational goal. So I think this video basically gave you a great perspective on what do product managers do. Leave in comments if you have questions on any of the areas. Until next time, do like and subscribe to the channel.